Hello, my name is Christian Newman. I'm a technical executive with EPRI. I run EPRI's Endangered Protected Species Research Program, as well as our environmental aspects of wind. And I help support other ecological programs and environmental programs like environmental aspects of solar and things like that. So today I'm going to talk to you about something that is near and dear to my heart, and it is bat data, specifically bat acoustic data. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the possibilities with bat acoustic data, particularly what we can do with it as a result of all the incredible things that are going on related to data science. So I'm going to be moving around and showing you guys some different websites. And again, as I go to different websites, some of these things are from private entities. EPRI is not endorsing any of them. I'm just using them merely as reference and sort of talking points. So bats. I think we all understand that these bats are echolocating, and that's primarily the way that they interact with space in terms of looking for food and flying around. They do have eyes, they can see, but they use sound as the primary mechanism for getting around and seeing things. So here is some sounds from some bats. And so when they make sounds, we can sort of turn them into sonogram spectrograms, and on each bat species has a particular sort of call structure. And again, this is just an example of that call structure for little brown bats, which are a species that's found across North America and is been petitioned for listing because of declines. So one of the things that is really important to understand is that we can differentiate these calls based off of what they look like in terms of frequency and sort of duration of the calls. And there's a lot of other metadata that's behind these calls, but we can use that to differentiate between species. We can also sort of use that data to look at behavior of bats too, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a sec. And so this is just a chart showing the different things that we're doing with acoustic data. And so there's been a proliferation of bat acoustic surveys in the last 20 years. Some of it's been driven because of declining populations as a result of white nose syndrome here in North America. But then also there's been a proliferation of bat acoustic surveys as a result of sort of wind. And so, this acoustic data can be used for a lot of different things. So first of all, it can be used to say, hey, what species are at a particular location? But then we can also, put out sort of more acoustic detectors, and we can look at how, what is the distribution of these bats across a landscape. But then we might also want to say, well, we want to look at these we want to look at not only sort of space, we want to look at sort of time, whether that's, within a night, within a season, or over a year, or over multiple years, over, large areas. But then we're also able to now start to discriminate what the bats are sort of doing based off of their calls using, and we can get into bat behavior. And then there's a big movement to using this acoustic data for, large scale population monitoring. And again, this is where the ability to store and manage, lots and lots of bat calls gives us the ability to do this. So lots of different kinds of bat detectors that you can sort of use. These are just, some of the ones that are used a lot in North America. But then, once you have the data, so you've gone out and you sort of recorded the data, that's one step. But then you have to be able to turn that data into information. And so you need to know what kind of bats are out there. And so there's a number of different kinds of software products. Again, just kind of highlighting a couple on these couple pages. These are primarily the ones that are being used in the US. These are auto classifiers. There are also ones in Europe and other parts of the world based on types of bats that are there. And so one of the really interesting things that's going on right now is being led by USGS. It's called the North American Bat Monitoring Program. And it's an effort to create a continent-wide program to monitor bats at both local and wide range scales. And so what the USGS has done, along with other researchers, both in the US as well as Canada, and I think in Mexico too, is that they've kind of gridded out the landscape, and they're designing methodologies to go out and sort of do acoustic surveys to try to sort of figure out what's going on with bats. And one of the other sort of outgrowths of that is a collaboration to create this bat acoustic monitoring portal. It's essentially a centralized database, web database, to allow people to upload, visualize, and share data. And so again, as you can aggregate this data over larger areas, you can start to sort of pull out interesting trends, and it's really, really sort of powerful database. And so right now, this bat amp is primarily, if you go to this portal, is primarily data that is from public entities like Fish and Wildlife Service, USGS, Forest Service, different sort of state entities. But it does also sort of include some private data, and there's an effort to try to sort of get private industry to also provide that data. So private industry, when they go out to try to sort of get a permit, if they're sort of clearing forest or building a new housing community, or potentially building a new sort of wind farm, oftentimes if it's within an area where there's bats of concern, you're going to have to collect this bat acoustic data. And so the idea is like, well, you're going out and collecting it for these particular projects, could you potentially upload this into this database and help us to sort of better understand bats? There's also private entities private companies that are sort of managing large-scale data for either clients or for the industry. So there's also other things going on, but this is one of the public-facing databases. And this is just a website from BatAmp, just a visualization of of some of the data they have for hoary bats. Again, so these represent all the different sort of acoustic sort of detector locations. But then you're able to, when you start aggregating this data, you can start looking at these current status. So this is just activity over time for hoary bats, which are bats that's being impacted by the wind industry, or there's a lot of fatalities associated with wind. And again, just some really interesting things you can do. So one of the other things that EPRI is also sort of working on is actually trying to take this data, this bat acoustic data, and make real-time decisions in terms of reducing bat fatality at wind farms. And so we did a project up in Wisconsin a couple of years ago. We were able to put bat detectors up on turbines and shut it off when the bats are there, and it worked very, very well. And now we've gotten some funding from the Department of Energy where we're looking to sort of replicate that. And so what this does is, we are sampling turbines across a wind farm, pulling in acoustic data in real time, combining that with weather and other sort of wind data, and making decisions about whether to, what are the risky periods and whether to shut the turbines down. Very sort of interesting, provides a lot, integrating a lot of different kinds of data into it. But one of the things that we are, moving towards and hoping we can sort of get to is actually taking it beyond this and getting into some of the species-specific curtailment scenarios. So again, if we could shut down, if there were just hoary bats or just, Indiana bats, northern long-eared bats, that's the next step. And that's where with data science, machine learning, and AI, there's an opportunity to be able to sort of do that, particularly if we can start to aggregate, data over a large scale, over a longer period of time, we have a much better chance of doing that. So really looking forward to, engaging with others to talk about all the different things that could be done, but we're in a really sort of exciting period of time related to sort of bats, data science, and acoustics. Thank you.